allow you this minute that I'm going to take from you, because I feel this one must talk about when Honorable Adams is here. The issue of that unrest that involves my child. Honorable Chair, if you will add that minute to honorable member, because I'm taking this time from you.
Nice to be you, Lieutenant General, because you can even
Honorable-
put a minute.
Honorable members.
We get shut down very quickly. Okay.
Honorable Adams is here and is listening to this. What pains me is to see a leader of society and coming here and talk bad about what happened in July. And I was there on the ground. I faced the fire. That X5 I talked about earlier that I bought in Pretoria. I drove that car alone in the car because I was isolating, because a General Fazi had died and people that were General Fazi were with us in the operation. So I had to isolate. In that isolation, I had to go and see the operations. I got into my own car. I drove through Phoenix with my handgun, hoping that someone will attack me and I was going to fight with that handgun. If I die, I die. Because I wanted to see these attacks and these murders that were happening in Phoenix with my own eyes, with no escort. I drove that night. That's a sacrifice that I made. The riot starts and the riot ends, Mr. Adams. The ministers, they come down to KZN after the riots. After the riots, they visit KZN. Why do they visit? It's because their boss, which is the President of the Republic, is coming to visit the following day to assess the damage. So when ministers arrive late at the airport and they drive and they see what is happening around and we brief them, the following day the President lands. I'm the one who's doing the briefing. The following day the President lands. That time we're busy with the mop-up operation. We are cleaning now. The dust is settled. We are cleaning. The President arrives. I'm the one that takes the President around all these sites in KZN. In Durban. Me, this one. The President is satisfied and he hears the plan of how we're going to deal with this and investigation and so forth. He gets on the aeroplane, he flies out. 2 days later, we are busy with cleanup investigation. There's no riot at all. I then get into the car. I drive with that X5 to Pretoria. And arrive in Pretoria, the following day, my wife gives birth, cesarean section. And she stays in a hospital, Mr. Adams, and she gets out the following day with the stitches in the stomach. I put her in that X5, Mr. Adams. I drive with her and that toddler, 1 year old, for 1,000 kilometers. Mr. Adams. And I leave her with a family. I go to the airplane, I fly back to Durban. I'm not there with a child. I left them like, that's a sacrifice that I don't think anyone will ever make. That's what I contributed in this July unrest. To come here and make it look like I neglected the duty, I prioritized the child over the safety of the citizens. You were not there, sir. I was here. So it is that I want to address because it's a very sensitive thing to me, personally. So if I can do that and someone who's a leader of society doesn't appreciate, I take an offense on it. The facts are there. Timelines of the violence are there. We are not in a business of thumb-sucking dates. We must say the riots happened on this day, it ended on this day what happened, and that day what happened, and that day what happened. So when I go, it's because there's no more violence. So for him to say, I neglect the job, it's the same with the former Speaker of this Parliament, who herself said that. She was sitting, Mr. Adams, she's the one who was sitting at Oyster Box, claiming to be running operation, with operation, a mop-up operation, sitting at Oyster Box. That's the Minister of Defense who was sitting there. So when I present these things, it sounded as if I'm arrogant before the Human Rights Commission, but I was giving the facts. I was telling the minister that the soldiers don't have equipment to do the work. You're calling them to come to Cape Town. I don't know what they're using to work in Cape Town, because they don't have tents to sleep on.
The KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has softened his earlier stance on suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, conceding that there is no evidence linking the minister directly to criminal syndicates or drug cartels. Appearing before the ad hoc committee on Wednesday, Mkhwanazi clarified that while Mchunu may not have been actively involved in organized crime, evidence gathered by a political killings task team suggests he was aware of efforts by certain rogue elements within the South African Police Service to dismantle the unit. According to Mkhwanazi, Mchunu's actions, particularly his directives affecting the task team, raised serious concerns about his role in enabling wrongdoing, and said he was assisting individuals like Shadrack Sibiya, who in turn are linked to what we refer to as the cartel squad. Even if not directly involved, such assistance creates an environment where criminality is allowed to thrive. The general, who is a complainant in the matter, went further to describe Mchunu's directive as unlawful, arguing that it undermined ongoing investigations in KwaZulu-Natal and could amount to defeating the ends of justice. Central to the allegations are three key decisions issued on 31 December 2024, the disbandment of the PKTT, a memorandum on filing crime intelligence post, and changes affecting border operations. Mkhwanazi described these moves as strategic, suggesting they had a direct impact on policing capacity and investigative progress. The commissioner also revealed that the investigators became aware of a family trust account linked to Mchunu through data extracted from the devices of businessman Vusimuzi Matlala. While the account is still under scrutiny, Mkhwanazi indicated it formed a part of the broader investigation. Further suspicion was raised when Mchunu allegedly failed to hand over his electronic devices to investigators. According to Mkhwanazi, when the devices were eventually accessed, critical information had been deleted, although forensic teams were able to recover some of the data, and said, why would a minister wipe information from state-owned devices, suggesting the act pointed to possible concealment. He also disputed Mchunu's claim that he had consulted his legal advisor, Advocate Vusi Pikoli, before issuing the controversial directives. Data analysis, he said, showed no communication between the two on the day in question, but rather exchanges between Mchunu and his chief of staff. Despite the weight of the allegations, Mkhwanazi struck a more measured tone, suggesting the minister may have been influenced rather than acting with full intent, and said he might have been part of what was happening, but I still give him the benefit of the doubt. He was new in the department and may not have fully understood the environment. He reiterated a broader concern about political figures becoming compromised over time, warning that even those not initially involved in corrupt networks can be drawn in and manipulated, and said, I believe Minister Mchunu was captured, and that ultimately led to the decisions he made. The KZN commissioner also spoke about his security clearance that expired in 2018 and said if he had powers, he was going to dismiss the entire vetting unit officials, starting with head Major General Feroz Khan, adding that the office is dirty. The general told the committee that he still does not have security clearance. This comes after controversial private investigator Paul O'Sullivan told the committee that the top cop does not have security clearance, and said the answer is no, I still do not have one. The evidence leader, Advocate Bongiwe Mkhize, asked when he last had clearance and what its current status was. Mkhwanazi said his last top secret clearance expired in 2018. He had applied for renewal in 2013 through the State Security Agency and said in the vetting process, you have to disclose everything: where you were born, where you grew up, your schooling, friends, family, bank accounts, assets, and more. He claimed that the SSA completed its process, including a polygraph test, but did not issue clearance due to allegations raised by an independent police investigative directorate official in KwaZulu-Natal, and said I was told there was a case involving a so-called hit squad in 2013 in KZN, in which I was implicated. At the time, I was working in Pretoria and had never worked in KZN. Mkhwanazi said he received no feedback on the matter. A subsequent application to Crime Intelligence also remained unresolved as of 2022. He alleged that further delays were caused by unverified claims, including media reports and cases he said he was never informed about, and said one allegation relates to a case investigated by IDEC. Another involves a case opened in Pretoria where I was accused of interfering in an investigation involving former acting National Commissioner Khomotso Pahlane and his wife, and stated that these allegations are used to justify not finalizing my clearance. From what I know, I have no case. My name was simply included. Mkhwanazi accused the vetting section under Khan of deliberately obstructing the process and said if I were in charge, I would remove everyone in that section, starting with Khan. He further alleged that sensitive files had been compromised, referencing the investigation into Pahlane's property, which he claimed originated from stolen documents. He said it is a dirty office. Parliament must ask how honest the vetting process is across the police and other institutions. What's your take on this one, people? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more news.